Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss more emerging details of Boris Johnson's misuse of power in suppressing foreign attacks on the UK, as well as his profiting from dodgy deals with Russians grateful for his treachery. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So to quickly recap, before the new revelations, some of what's been going on. So Boris Johnson's links with those close to the Kremlin are well known in Conservative circles. It's the reason why he was apparently not allowed complete oversight over MI6 during his time as Foreign Secretary. Normally that ministerial role gives you that oversight. Theresa May was like, no. He was also given large donations by Russians close to Putin and his regime immediately after announcing that he would not allow the publication into a report concerning Russian interference in our public polls and elections. But there have been a couple of new revelations recently. The first is a simple continuation of the money he is receiving from grateful Russian allies of Vladimir Putin. This time it was £45,000 being paid to him by the wife of a former Russian government minister, Vladimir Chanukin, to play tennis with the Prime Minister. Chanukin himself, bit of a tennis fan himself, he paid £160,000 to play tennis with Boris Johnson and David Cameron back in 2014. He's also one of the donors to have given Johnson a lot of money last year. As soon as Boris Johnson announced he wasn't going to release the Russian report, bang, Chanukin gave him £200,000. But the more serious concern is of the government allowing dodgy Russian businessmen to profit at the expense of the British taxpayer. So this relates to an investigation by Channel 4 in 2016, which showed that the Ministry of Defence were selling a series of underground stations known as ghost stations. Dmytro Firtash was a Conservative Party donor, but also someone reportedly known to both the UK and international security agencies as someone who posed a serious security threat. He bought one of these stations. It was supposed to be for £53 million, but £33 million of the cost was deferred by the Ministry of Defence. As the investigation noted, what that basically was giving Firtash a £33 million loan from the British government, completely tax-free, interest-free and high risk. Shortly after the sale, Firtash was arrested by the FBI for racketeering and money laundering. Now, at this point, let us familiarise ourselves with a few issues here. Brexit was not supported by the leadership of any major political party. Why? Because all of them know how damaging it will be for the country. Now, why would it be that when the results came back for leaving the EU, that the Conservative Party, who, remember, were largely against Brexit, yes, the extreme right wing were in favour of it, but most of them were against it, suddenly swung not only behind Brexit, you could feel, well, they issued the referendum, of course they have to go, oh, you vote for it, all right, we'll do it. But why they suddenly swung behind the most damaging form of Brexit? A hard Brexit wasn't campaigned for in 2016, so there was no reason to suggest that this is what people voted for. They could have left the membership of the EU, but stayed in the customs union and single market. This would have been much less damaging and was perfectly in keeping with not only the wording of the referendum, but also the campaigning of the pro-Leave groups as well. But they didn't. Now, it's been known for some time that the only gain there could possibly be by anyone operating in the UK is in deregulating financial systems. Literally nothing else helps anyone. The idea that it allows already wealthy people to remain more wealthy by hiding more income in order to avoid tax is certainly a big part of it. We all know about that. But the UK and London's financial centre in particular has another problem. In the UK, we do not just represent some of the worst tax avoidance in the world. And if you were actually to consider all British overseas territories, we actually are the worst country for tax avoidance in the world. But money laundering is also a huge problem in London. For years, Russian oligarchs and others, but the Russian oligarchs particularly notable at the moment, whether former or current allies of Putin, have been laundering money in London. None of this benefits the country. This does not help the economy at all. That's not the point of money laundering. So it can only be done on this scale with government compliance. They're not turning a blind eye because it's good to the country, so they must be turning a blind eye because there's something in it for them. It's the only explanation. And these oligarchs have donated large sums of money to the Conservatives, who will of course do anything for a few quid to keep turning a blind eye to this practice. Brexit was an especially grand prize for them. And now we have Boris Johnson heading up our government, someone who doesn't just play along because it helps the party get donations and helps him get power, but because he personally profits from it as well. That the British government knew all about Firtash is well documented. I'll link the article below, you can read it yourself. My concern is what abuses are going to occur after we leave the transition period with the EU. The scale of abuse is already enormous, at great cost to UK citizens and residents, both directly and indirectly. But Johnson wants to ensure that these sort of activities can increase massively, with much lower risk to the money launderers. And if you're wondering, so how can we blame Johnson specifically for this when he's only just become Prime Minister? You're talking about things that happened a few years ago. Well, not only was he an influential member of the party before, but he was Mayor of London. Many of these stations were being sold were owned by Transport for London. So Boris Johnson as Mayor of London had oversight at the start of this. It's Johnson as Mayor who began this project, which culminated in the dodgy dealing of selling these stations. Now, there was a genuine businessman, Adjunct Chambers, who had planned to buy a station that Firtash bought and turn it into attractions, museums and so on, that would have turned a tidy profit to the City of London. You know, he was going to pay £50 million for it, but was told in a meeting with Kremlin and Johnson that the market value was £100 million. Now, you can imagine his surprise when he found later on it was going to be sold at an auction. Chambers reports that he was threatened before the auction took place, and that interested buyers were not allowed access to the site to check it out. And then when you bear in mind that the government were only paid £20 million for it, because remember, it was supposed to be £53 million they were selling it to Firtash for, but Firtash only paid £20 million. When they were trying to value it at £100 million and had been offered £50 million by a genuine businessman who would have actually given them £50 million, then, and of course that would have, you know, the business they were going to use it for would have attracted business rates and other taxes as well, which go into the public purse. It all helps. So they'd not only be getting money for the site, but getting more money in taxes as well, all to the benefit of the country. You can see how just from one dodgy deal, the UK suffers. Imagine this cost collectively from all such deals, only some of which will ever come to light. This is one of my major concerns. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for further details. And until next time, I'll see you later.